Hello everybody, my name is Dratnos and welcome to part 1 of my Outlaw Rogue PvE guide, Azerite Traits, Trinkets, and Stats. So let's start off by quickly talking about stats. Now a disclaimer here is that for your character, as your amount of stats change, and as your trinkets and your talents and your Azerite traits, as all those things change, your stats relative values are going to change, and the best way to know which stats to go for is to sim your character, and that will tell you what your relative stat weights are. And a website to do this is raidbots.com. So you should go there anytime you have a close decision between stats. But in general, for Outlaw Rogue, you're going to find that your best stats are crit and verse. And then haste is a little worse than those. And there are some things that interact with the value of haste, and I'll point those out when we get to them. And then mastery is generally your worst stat by quite a bit. As far as trinkets go, your best trinkets are usually going to be the loaded dice from Freehold, the spyglass from Siege of Borealis. Some of the raid trinkets are pretty good as well. Or the PvP badge or medallion. Those are also very good. So aiming for some combination of those is usually a good way to go. There's also a World Quest Spyglass that if you somehow Titan Forge a big one of those is very, very good too. Okay, so let's talk about Azerite traits. In a single target situation, the best three are Deadshot, Ace Up Your Sleeve, and Treacherous Covenant. Both Deadshot and Ace Up Your Sleeve are going to change your rotation, so pay attention for that when we get to one of the rotation videos later in this series. And also Ace Up Your Sleeve has an interesting effect where particularly if you have multiple copies of that trait, you're actually going to want to see if maybe Deeper Stratagem will perform better for you than Vigor. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a Talents video, but the upshot of that is that particularly if you're a high haste build, that might end up simming better for you than Vigor. Otherwise, if you only have one Ace Up Your Sleeve or zero, you probably don't have to worry about testing to see if Deeper Stratagem will perform better for you. Of the other traits that you see on this list here, none of them are notable in how they change your rotation. The only thing that is worth mentioning is that Brigand's Blitz, particularly the first copy of Brigand's Blitz is often quite good. If you look at this graph here, the first copy of Brigand's Blitz is actually the best first copy of anything you could find. But the second and third copies are quite bad. That's because there's diminishing returns on it. Now this is also a sim on a pretty low haste setup. As you get more haste, Brigand's Blitz will perform worse and worse. And if you have a very low haste setup, you might find one copy of Brigand's Blitz to actually be very, very good for you. Okay, so in Mythic Plus, the same traits are all good as they were in single target, in pure single target, with one notable exception, and that is you absolutely need one copy of Keep Your Wits About You. Keep Your Wits About You is just the best thing you can be doing by far. If you look at this graph here, one copy of Keep Your Wits About You in M+, is better than any two copies of even the next best thing, which is Deadshot, which is still really good. So your ideal Mythic Plus setup is going to be like one Keep Your Wits About You, 3 Deadshot, and then your last 2 slots you can choose between like Ace Up Your Sleeve, Treacherous Covenant, Brigand's Blitz, one of those is fine in that slot too. Or just whatever you've got. Barrage of Many Bombs from the Engineering Helmet, that's a very much thing that's worth crafting. You can craft that and use your Tidal Cores and Breath of One Samdi to get up to as high as a 415 helmet off of Engineering. So that's a thing that's very much worth considering because that is a piece that has both Keep Your Wits About You and Deadshot on the far outer ring and Barrage of Many Bombs on the inner middle ring, the inner outer ring, whatever, the second ring. And so that piece is very good for us. Anyways, the main point is that the same things are good as they are on single target, with the exception that you now absolutely need one Keep Your Wits About You. And it's not like Keep Your Wits About You is bad on single target, it's just not as good as all the other stuff. And you absolutely only need one Keep Your Wits About You. And the big thing about Keep Your Wits About You is this part where your Sinister Strikes strike more often when you're Blade Flurrying, and you don't get any increase in that effect as you get more copies of the trait. So you don't need to worry about getting extras of it. Another thing that's true about it is that it does make haste a little bit worse in AoE situations. Because you need less haste, because you're spending less energy as part of your rotation, because all your Sinister Strikes are hitting twice. Thanks for watching part 1 of my guide to Outlaw Rogue in PvE. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to go on to talk about talents, I'm going to talk about AoE rotation, I'm going to talk about single target rotation, I'm going to talk about Blade Flurry, just a whole episode on Blade Flurry, and a whole episode on Roll the Bones. Those are my plans for going forward. So if you like this video, remember to subscribe to this channel so you'll learn when those come out, or if you're watching this in the future, it should be part of a playlist where you can find those videos too. And you might enjoy some of the other content on my channel. I do have plans to have Outlaw M+ like commentary walkthrough videos here, so if you want to see this kind of stuff in action, that's the place to go. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.